We might get some stragglers coming in. Okay, let's crack on. So thank you everyone that has jumped onto this call for the Euros Ready Club's first meeting or networking event, as I'm calling it. So I don't want it to be a formal meeting, more a networking opportunity for us to talk and share about ideas around this project that we are trying to run. So thanks again for joining us. Hopefully we've all kind of recovered from yesterday and the disappointment of what could have been. Couldn't have picked a worse night, could I really, in hindsight, with a lot of people up late last night and have probably been to work today. But we'll put that behind us and dive straight into this. So we're hopefully going to kickstart this project tonight. And I'm really keen throughout, if you've got anything you want to share, if you've got anything you want to challenge us with, if you've got suggestions, please do contribute, because it'll make the meeting a lot more fun than me just talking. So we have set cameras off for the time being, but if you are sharing, feel free to chuck your camera back on and obviously unmute yourself. There is a hands up, raise your hand button that you can use. So if I'm talking and you want to intervene or suggest or have a speak about something, you can just press raise your hand and it will signal that to me. Also, you've got the chat box, and I will just request, if my internet starts going patchy and you can't hear me, please somebody write in the chat box, because I'll just carry on and carry on and carry on without knowing. So I'll aim to keep this under an hour. I'll be more than happy to stay on afterwards if people need to talk or if people have got questions, and also I'm more than happy to arrange separate bespoke meetings with yourselves, with your clubs, with your committees, whatever that is, in whatever kind of format you need it to be. So we don't need to cover absolutely everything around this project tonight. What I'm hoping is we set the scene and clear up kind of anything that we're unsure of, and share some best practice too. So first and foremost, a bit of a brief outline to the project. So the vision is around creating a hub of clubs that are the best places for women and girls to play football, and support these clubs to be in a position to maximise the effect of the tournament we've got coming up on the women and girls game, and create, spell check straight away, a lasting legacy. And we're going to keep banging on about legacy throughout this meeting, because this project's geared at the legacy. What we don't want this to be is something that happens around the tournament and then is forgotten about and put to one side. We want this to be a lasting legacy. The mission from us is to empower and support you as clubs to increase the number of female volunteers in the game, to listen to the views of female players and reduce barriers to participation, volunteering, and to constitute permanent change. And again, that links to the legacy around those permanent changes. The aims, this isn't all the aims, but it's the key ones. We're dreaming big. We want 15 clubs to get through this process and complete the project, essentially. So we're dreaming big, and I think 15 clubs, it's not a huge number, but there is a bit of work to be done. So we're dreaming big. We want 15. If we get more, we get more, but we're really pushing for that. And then you've got some percentages around there. So 50% of female teams with at least one female volunteer listed at the end of the 22-23 season. All female clubs to have at least 30% committee representation. And by the end of next season, sorry, 22-23 season, we want to be implementing and working towards the changes that may be raised from the survey that we'll cover later on. Okay. So I've also just linked to that because we're going to keep going on quite regularly about increasing the number of female volunteers, whether that's in club or team roles, coaching roles or administrative roles. I just want to add a bit of context to that, and I want to really reiterate straight off that what we're not talking about during this project at any point is like for like replacing male volunteers with female volunteers. That is not what this project is aimed at. It's about increasing the number of female volunteers within the game. So just add a bit of meat to the bone, if you will, on that. If this will go up to the next one. We actually have a volunteer toolkit that we'll talk about later, and these are a couple of slides from around creating the right environment and diversity within your clubs. So it's not about how to implement the change yet. We'll cover that later. But these are kind of the results of what can happen if you're able to do that. So if we are able to increase diversity within our clubs, we get different skill sets within the committee and the workforce. You get access to a wider talent pool, which improves your quality. We create more role models, which hopefully sparks the interest from the next set of volunteers coming through. And there's kind of a perception shift and a culture change within organisations, and it becomes the norm, which is what we're really striving towards. And the benefits, and this page is absolutely rammed, but the benefits to clubs with more diverse workforce, there's so many good things, so many returns for clubs. So the committee and workforce quality improves. You've got greater creativity, better decision-making processes. Diverse committees have improved quality discussions, have better problem-solving abilities. You have more diverse experience to draw back on. You don't get stuck in kind of a groupthink mentality where, with respect, if the committee's been in place a very long time and it's been the same people with the same mindset, it's very difficult to check and challenge that and open up to broader ideas. And balanced committees have a better understanding, and I've written consumer there, but it's not consumers, it's your members, it's your players, it's your parents, which is a better experience for them. So that's the rationale behind why a lot of what we talk about tonight will be around workforce and increasing the number of female volunteers. It isn't all about that, but that's just, we wanted to just nail that pretty early. And I just want to reiterate that we're not looking to replace, we are looking to increase the number of. So first things first, bit of reflection. You can use the chat box if you'd like. Why are you here? So what is the reason that you as a club or you individually are interested in this project? So I'll give you 30-45 seconds there to kind of chuck some things into the chat box if you can access it. Just describe why you're here, why your club's interested, or why you've come individually on behalf of your club. What's motivating you to become part of this project? Just get my chat box open. So I can see a couple of people are typing. Excellent. So Chris has mentioned around providing opportunities for girls to enjoy and play football. That's a real key message for us around the enjoyment. John has mentioned to expand female participation at all levels. Fantastic. Stephen's mentioned around creating pathways and equal opportunities. God, to increase the numbers of girls at the club. We've got Chris, we've got 3 girls teams, but looking not to only offer playing opportunities, but refs and other opportunities. Brilliant. So linking it to non-playing roles, fantastic. We want to get more women involved in coaching and more girls teams. Brilliant, Katie, love that. Female chairman of the club, I want to expand opportunities within the club, create pathways to get girls and females into football within my area. Love that from Hayley. I'm a welfare officer, but my day job, I lead a lot of inclusion and diversity work, so I want to build on that. We've grown the girls' game with many female coaches and refs, but the committee is still totally male. Okay, interesting. So there's some really, really good bits going in. I'm just going to let these last couple drop in. Just wait for, I think there's one more person typing, so let's wait for that one, and then we'll have a little discussion around that. I'll carry on, and I'll cover that one when it gets dropped in. So while you're here, I've done a little kind of sliding scale here from extrinsic to intrinsic. So what I'm looking at in terms of extrinsic, sorry, is that it might be that you want support from us, or you want to grow the game within your club, to grow the size of your club, which is fantastic. And also kind of looking at it from an intrinsic point of view, that there's some really interesting points in there around we want to improve diversity within our club. We want to increase the number of female coaches within the club. So that's fantastic. And you'll all be here for your own different reasons. You'll all have your own things that you want to get out of this, and they're not all going to be the same. So it will be bespoke to you. You might be looking to enact a culture shift within your club, but actually you've got a huge girls pathway. You might be a club that are starting from quite a new pathway, a couple of teams, and you want to get a culture in place that then leads to growing your playing pathway. It might be that you're looking to increase the number of volunteers, female volunteers, working within your club. So you'll all be here for different reasons. So there's nothing to worry about. If someone raises something tonight, you think, well, that's not us, or we're not doing that. That's totally fine. You're all going to be here for your own reasons. So I'm just going to move it on. So I just want to take this opportunity before we carry on any further to really emphasise that this is a club project. So it's something that you will take away and work on as a club, whether it's you individually or whether it's you as a committee or a larger working group. It's a club project. It's not, if you like, a box ticking exercise, or it's not something that you can go, yeah, we're doing all that, we're done. It is something you're going to have to go away and put some work into. We want it to be an opportunity for you to define your club's culture and really put a stamp on your club about what are you about. What your club stands for, what your club's trying to do. And we'll of course support that, and that will be in lots of different forms, whether it's in these type of meetings, whether it's face-to-face we're coming out, whether we work with your club individually or in smaller groups, depending on your needs. But it is a club project, and we're really keen around this culture section of it, that it refers to a set of behavioural and procedural norms that can be observed within a company or a club, which includes its policies, procedures, ethics, values, employee and behaviour attitudes, goals and codes of conduct. So it is a holistic approach. We really want you to live and breathe this culture, and getting everyone to sing kind of off the same hymn sheet within your club, which in turn kind of sets the standards. It means everyone's doing or delivering things in the way that your club wants it to be done, and also prospective or new volunteers know exactly what they're signing up for. Parents know exactly what they're signing up for. Players know exactly what they're signing up for. So it can give your club a real clear culture and identity that can be really attractive to people looking from the outside in, and can help your club to work really, really well. I think it's also important for us just to clear up how we got here as a county FA and how we settled on this project. So the rationale, research, so FA research and other kind of research into diversity and the female game and female sport. So that was external and FA stuff. We've done our own surveys and our own pieces of work and our own kind of interactions with clubs. And it highlighted some really key areas that we believe we can make a difference in with this project. So we appreciate that there are other organisations, and even within the FA, there are things happening around the female game, but this is what we've settled on, and this is what we really want to push. And you'll all be coming at it from different start points and different areas and different strengths and different weaknesses. So some of you will be sitting here when the criteria is on in a minute, thinking, we've got quite a lot of work to do. Some of you will probably be sitting here going, we do a lot of that already, and that's great, absolutely brilliant. But we think both of those situations, you'll still get a lot of benefit from coming through this project with us. So absolutely fine that you're coming at it from different areas, and we think we'll have a benefit kind of either way. So on to the criteria. Hopefully most of you have seen this already and it's not a shock, or it's not something we're just dropping on you now. So on the criteria, it's on there on the screen. Are there any thoughts on it? How do you feel about it? Is it achievable? Is there anything within the criteria that you think that's going to be tough, or that's a concern and we're struggling in that area? So again, you can go to the chat boxes or you can raise your hand on this one. But that's the criteria that you've all received, hopefully, prior to this meeting. And again, I want to reiterate, it's not a box ticking exercise, but do you have any feelings about this? Is there any concerns? Is it achievable? Any areas that you want clarifying, or you think we're going to need lots of support in there? Feel free to fire away or stick your hands up. And I do want to make clear, before I let Jim come in, I want to make it really clear that there is a working towards element in this criteria. So there's not a hard and fast date where we go, you've not achieved X by that date. We're more interested in you as a club working towards and doing things in the right manner and demonstrating that you're working really hard to drive that area of the game or that area of the criteria. So I don't want that fear factor is we're never going to be able to get that done by a date. It's not about that. It's about the change that you're looking to instill culturally and constitutionally. So I'll go to, I think Jim had his hand up first. It's loading up really slow for me. Come on. I can't even see the participants. There we go. Jim, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think I have done. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes, perfect. Fire away.
You might just have answered the question I was going to ask, but on one of your earlier slides, you mentioned that you were aiming for the end of the 22-23 season. So when it comes to things like 30% representation on the steering committee, or 50% of teams, having listed female volunteers.
Yeah.
Is the end of the 22-23 season a hard deadline, or
so
is it just at that point you're awarding the accreditation, and if we're making progress towards it, that's sufficient?
No, so that's our aim as a county FA, and that's something that we're really going to strive towards. But within your clubs individually, and obviously this project will be, the culmination of it will be around the Euros, when we're really celebrating it and shouting about you as clubs. So that aim is for us, you as clubs. If you are demonstrating that we're putting this in place, we're working towards this, we've changed some of our recruitment policies to try and drive more female volunteers towards the club. For me, that's success in this project, that you are thinking about that, you've made changes, or you've reinforced good practice that you're already doing. That's success for me. So you can worry less about the percentages, because that's something that we hope will be a knock-on effect from this project. But it's more for us going on that cultural, constitutional kind of route of, what are you putting in place as clubs to really push towards that? But we're not going to be hard and go, right, it's May next year, sorry, you've only got 20%, because you might be doing lots of good work behind the scenes working towards that, and that is success for us. So I don't want you to get worried or put off by some of those statistics. It's more around, what are you doing to try and drive that and make improvements in that area, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Tom.
Awesome. I think I saw Katie's hand up, but again, my list.
Yeah, I did have it up. Similar question to Jim, but so that's fine. That one's answered. I think the other question is, so how are you guys going to evaluate this? Okay,
so it will be bespoke to clubs, and there's no hiding from that. That you will all, and I'm going to come on to this hopefully on the next two slides, you will all come at this with different approaches and different routes to success. So we're going to have to be, judging is the wrong word, we're going to be working with you along on it. So if we can see that there's things in place, and I'm not going to sit here and say there's a right and a wrong way. So we'll be learning as we go, we'll be looking to support you as we go. And if we can see that you're doing things as clubs to try and hit these targets and work towards these targets, then you're going to be classed as signed off, if you will, or ticked off, you are doing this. So there's not a hard and fast, you're either doing this or you're not. Some of them there is, it is black and white, but the stuff around the percentages, coaches, committee members, that sort of stuff, it'll be a bit of trial and error. It'll be a bit of development work from you as clubs. Some of you will go down route A, some will go down route B, and we'll see what works, because some things will work for certain clubs in certain areas that don't work in other areas. So there isn't a hard and fast kind of, you must be doing this in some areas. For example, let's get one where it is black and white. Things like equal access to pitches, that is black and white. So we would expect that somewhere within your club's rules, and I'll come on to some of the criteria and why it's there in a minute, that's there in black and white in your constitution. And I know some of these can actually seem, Tom, this is obvious, but we got feedback and it seems glaringly obvious, but these things are still happening in certain clubs. And I'm not saying it's you, and I'm not saying it's your club, but we get reports of, well, the girls are training over there on an old field, but the boys teams are training on the 3G and it's the same club. What's that about? Or hold on a minute, they get to train midweek slot 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, and the girls are being asked to train at the weekend on the day before their game, or and things like that. So those things are still happening. So for me, that one's an easy one. In black and white, you can, as a club, pledge in your club rules, in your constitution, that our teams, if you've got boys and girls, get equal access to those pitches. That one's an easy fix. So that one's a black and white. We can go, yes, you're doing it, or yes, you're not. Oh, no, you're not, sorry. But in stuff like the percentages and working towards coaches, you as a club might think, right, we're going to try this, and we'll cover some of this in a minute. We're going to try this, and we're going to really drive and push towards recruiting parents, mums, for example. Another club might look at it in like the way I'm going to discuss about Pogmore later. They might think, right, we're going to try and recruit our under 16 girls to feed back in as coaches. So we can't say at the time what will work and what won't. So as long as you are kind of putting in place some development work, if you will, and you're trying to implement it, we'll support that and we will see that as success and sign it off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
And the only other comment is I wonder if it should be equal access to pitches and facilities.
I'm just writing that down. So when you're talking facilities around the stuff around the pitches, changing rooms,
toilets, yeah, changing rooms, that, yeah.
Okay, that's a very valid point. It's something that we can maybe, you as a club can certainly lead on that and say we're taking that a step further, but it's maybe something we need to adjust and really clarify within the wording of this. So thank you for that. So I'm just going to move it on a slide or two. Again, feel free to pop your hands up. I am struggling a little bit with my sidebar, is not doing a great job, but I'm just going to try and demonstrate maybe a couple of routes that you might go down or examples of how this might look for you as a club. So how are you going to achieve that criteria? And we've said already that some of it's black and white and some of it will be more development work. So there's two kind of routes that you'll be going down. The first one is we don't currently meet that criteria. So the throwback to you as clubs will be, right, what are you going to do to really push and make this an important agenda point for your club that you're going to work towards over the next year, over the next 2 years? So I've just popped in an example of a development plan that it's not to be copied, it's made up essentially, but I've linked it to the criteria point. So the objective is increasing the number of female coaches at the club, and linked to our achievement targets, that's the 50% aim we want. And I want to be really clear on that. That's 50% of your female teams with one female volunteer listed. That doesn't mean they have to be listed as the manager. It doesn't mean that there can't be male and female coaches working together, but it's having a team with that female volunteer listed. So imaginary club don't currently meet that. So an example of a development plan to demonstrate what you're going to do to work towards that might look something like this. So first action point would be to review your current workforce and calculate the percentage. Once you know the percentage, you know what work you've got to be working towards. So some actions that might be built into your club development plan to demonstrate your desire to meet this would be to create a player to coach program to increase the numbers of players evolving into coaches within the club. So that might be looking to target your under 16s or your under 18s girls teams, and putting in some sort of program to try and get them to come back into the club as coaches, to support maybe younger age groups and coaches that are linked to them. Again, they don't have to be the manager or the lead coach. The next action point on your plan might be to create a mums or female family steering group to support the club in its decision-making processes, and to improve or make a better female-friendly club environment. So although that's not necessarily recruiting coaches, what it might be doing is creating a better environment that makes it more attractive to prospective parents to come and volunteer at the club. Next action point, again, it's all examples. Improve perception of club as an inclusive place to play and enjoy football. So you might have a piece of work to do around that where you're looking to really improve the perceptions of the club as a female-friendly environment. Okay, and then the final part on this development plan would be to target and directly market volunteer positions to mums and female family members at the club. So that is an example of a plan that you might put in place to try and meet that target of getting to 50% of your female teams with one female volunteer listed. So not all of it was directly targeting and recruiting. Some of the work in there was around environment and creating the right place to be that's attractive for prospective volunteers. So hopefully that kind of clarifies a little bit around, we might not be able to meet that in the time frame, as in we get to next year, we're not going to get to 50%, Tom. That's not the end of the world. If you've got a plan in place, something along those lines that's linked to your club and fits the bill for your club, that is success for us, and we'll be really, really happy if that's the type of work that's getting put in, that you are creating development plans, it's thought out, it's specific to your club, and it works for you, and it's obviously got to be achievable. So you set yourself sky high standards that might not be achievable in that first year, in second year. So that's an example of what you might put in place in terms of development plans to work towards. You might be in a place where you go, we're doing that already. So my challenge to you would be, right, how are we going to formalise that and how are we going to embed it within your club permanently? Because you might be in a great position, actually. Our committee is really diverse. It's 50-50 in terms of male-female split. We're in a great position, and that is a fantastic place to be. Our challenge would be, okay, how are you going to ensure that in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, we come back and take a snapshot of your club, that that's still going to be the case? So it might be that you need to look at your club constitutionally and maybe make some amendments that the club strive towards and work towards achieving those targets permanently. So if volunteer A, B and C left, when it comes to recruitment, are your club going to be looking to recruit to ensure that you retain that diversity at committee level? So that's the generic paragraph A is the generic part pulled from a club constitution template from the FA, and it might be a possible addition for you as a club would be the club committee shall consist of at least 30% of each gender at all times. In instances of resignation or expulsion leaving the committee below this percentage, the number one agenda item at all meetings will be the recruitment of new committee members to meet the threshold. So that might be a change that you make constitutionally, formally, to embed that within your club, so it leaves that legacy that in 5 years' time or 3 years' time, when we take a look back at the work we've done, we look at your club and we go, they've had a turnover of volunteers, but actually they've maintained that percentage because as a club they've agreed and they've constituted that if volunteer A, B and C leave, that they'll try and replenish and keep that percentage going. And it's our job as a county FA, and it's your jobs as clubs to recruit in a way that does attract a diverse pool of not applicants, but a diverse pool of people to be at your club. And I know we do get this labelled at us quite regularly that, Tom, but we can only accept the volunteers that come forward. And we want to challenge that a little bit and say, as clubs, we want to be attractive places to be, and we want to be really smart in how we recruit volunteers and how we go about that to make sure that we're able to pick the ones, or at least get applicants from kind of the diverse backgrounds that we're looking for. And we'll come on to recruitment a little bit later, but I'm hoping that's maybe given a bit of context to what work you might need to do. You might be doing it already and it's how do you formalise it, or you might need to put some work in as a club, and it's over to you and we'll be happy to support. How are you going to get that in place? What steps are you going to put in place to work towards that? And again, I want to reiterate that it might take you 2-3 years. It doesn't mean you're not part of this project. If you're working towards and you're demonstrating that you're doing it, you will be one of the clubs that we shout about and really celebrate, because the work you're doing will see a return for us in the years to come. Okay, if there's any questions on that, now's probably a good time to stick your hands up or into the chat. I did see someone wrote in the chat actually. Manage you, that's it. And committee are the two we have to still think it's achievable. Attaining these standards, some kind of accreditation or type mark, essentially classification. Okay, so I'll answer Stephen's question. I will cover this a little bit more later. It's not like club accreditation or charter standard where there's going to be some sort. It's not a formal kite mark, but what we are going to be doing is highlighting you as clubs, highlighting you as the best places to be, shouting about the work that you're doing, and really pushing attention towards you as clubs, because what we're from outside looking in at your clubs, we are saying you're the best places to go and play. You're the best places to go and volunteer. You're the best places to be in our county, because you're doing this stuff behind the scenes, and you're guaranteeing that you're doing it because you're signing up and you're working towards this pledge. So it isn't going to be a set kite mark. It's not going to be something from the FA where it's recognised, but we're going to be shouting about. You're going to be on our website as female-friendly clubs, Euro-ready clubs, best places to play football, best places to volunteer. So it isn't going to be a hard kind of accreditation, if that makes sense. So hopefully you had a bit of Jim, go on, fire away.
Tom, just on that point, if there is no kind of kite mark, how do we as clubs advertise it ourselves?
So
I understand that you're going to put club badges and links and make references to best in class clubs on your websites, but if we want to use it ourselves as a marketing tool and there isn't a kite mark, How do you envisage us doing that?
So the plan is, I'm not using the word kite mark because that is something that's recognised by governing bodies, but it will be recognised. It'll almost be a county FA kite mark would be the best way to describe it. And what we'll be doing, hopefully we'll have our new mark-ons person in place by then, but we will provide you with assets for you to say, we are a recognised club from the county FA. We are doing these things. We are the best place to play and volunteer. So we will be providing you with those assets to say, we're a Euros ready club. We're creating a legacy. We are doing X, Y, and Z. So probably the best way to describe it would be it's county FA kite mark, if that makes sense.
But will there be some kind of badge or kite mark that we can use? Because obviously when we've got a website, if we can put something like that on it, that's the most immediate way of attracting.
Yeah, so it will be that. Yeah, so it will be. So I'm just writing notes so I don't forget. So it will be that you will be a Euros ready club, and that will be the kite mark. So we will create assets around that. So yes, you can put it on your website. Yes, you can tweet it or Facebook it or on your social media and marketing and communications that we are a Euros ready club, and then it will be around. This is what it means.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
No problem. I think it's just the one hand up. So I'm hoping you had a little chance to look through some of the examples, but I think it was a good time to just run through what some of the clubs in this county are doing already to hopefully inspire and maybe point you in the right direction of some of the work that needs to happen. So we've got 3 case studies. I don't want to spend ages on this because I don't want it to be boring, in short. But we've got these 3 case studies, one from a piece of research we did. Stephen, who's on the call, sent me some info around what his club have been up to around recruiting female volunteers, coaches, players. And then I've got a little piece around AFC Pogmore, again, another Barnsley-based club. So case study 1 is around Pogmore. So it was a piece of work that they've put into place this year, looking at turning players already at the club into coaches. So in previous seasons, they have found it difficult to recruit parents, mums in particular. So they tried to go with a different approach, really creative, really good idea from the club. And my favourite part about this is the bit at the end on this page here around the enthusiasm's really rubbed off on the players. So what they've done is they've got a squad of under 16 players. They've managed to get 6 that have stepped forward and shown interest in not a leadership academy, but a programme in which the players are given opportunities to coach at the club on younger age groups to develop them as coaches, to be a female role model for their players. And it's really pleasing to see that James really mentions around the enthusiasm has rubbed off on the younger players. Seeing those older girls coming down has been inspiring for them. So that's been fantastic from their point of view. Just going to put it onto the page. There have been challenges. Giving them little guidance and leaving it in their hands, that they've kind of left the coaches to do it after setting the program up for them to run through. So they were worried about how to organise it and how to set it up. So they have learned as they've gone, and it'll be interesting to see how this goes over the next couple of years. So they were worried about that. They've allowed the players to kind of work at their own pace and find their feet and develop kind of organically within the club. And what's good is because it's a club they're familiar with, the environment should be fairly safe. They should understand what the club's about. The benefits, it's made the managers and the coaches who were already in place take a real look at how they approach their coaching, particularly with the younger girls. And it's interesting that James has made note to maybe shifting that focus into really being about fun. And ensuring the environment's really good for those younger girls. So that has been, for me, they're my favourite parts of that study, or that piece of information from Pogmore, that they've given these girls a chance. They've come in and actually not only have they inspired the players, but they've really supported the coaches already in place to maybe make some small changes to how they deliver football at the club. And that goes back to some of the stuff we mentioned earlier about diversity and the benefits of that, a different set of eyes, a bit more of a diverse volunteer workforce for those teams has actually had a really positive effect upon the players. So that's one way or one route that you can look to maybe go down if you're in a position of we need to increase the number of female volunteers. It might be that you look to inspire and empower players, older players within your club, and give them some deployment, some opportunity to work with age groups below them. And I think it's really important to highlight that There is now an FA course that's totally free, and it's the first step on the coaching ladder, the FA Playmaker. So that really ties in nicely with that. That could be an opportunity for them to take their first step in their coaching journey in a nice environment, a club they know, get a qualification out of it, and you never know what that can lead to. But that can be a really, really useful development tool if you think that that fits and would apply within your club. So James is really open and honest that they didn't really know where it was going to go, what form it was going to take. But what has happened is that it's led to a real positive change within the club, and hopefully it inspires the next set of players coming through the year after, or potentially parents, mums, volunteers. So that's just one route you might look to go down. Rachel, you've got your hand up. Have you got anything you want to add or questions around that?
It's not so much questions, I think, just thoughts on that one. So we've used a similar model, not necessarily with the younger players, but with our ladies first and development team, and actively encourage them to start on the coaching journey. But we've sort of let them come in pairs. So for the girls teams where we're using female coaches, they work together. So we try to always have 2 of them together. And that's meant that out of 8 age groups, 5 of them now have double female coaches. And I think they felt really supported. And where we've used mums, they've tended to feel more comfortable with sort of doing some first aid qualifications, etc., as a starter, because there's a real difference between a mum saying they'll help and a dad saying they'll help. And you know, we're often told, well, dads do it, mums don't feel as comfortable. So I think we have to be realistic, but they're happy to support some of the female players who are becoming coaches, and that's worked really nicely.
That's really, really, really helpful. Really good. That is. The pairs bit is maybe a bit of detail there. That this is why I want it to be a networking that could make all the difference, and for that comfortable environment, I think that is really top draw, and really interesting point around. Maybe you've mentioned coming in down that first aid route or whatever, but I think hopefully we'll cover in a minute about some of the thoughts and feelings of particularly female coaches around that. Like you said, dads do the coaching and mums will do X, Y, and Z. And we might really have to shift our attention on what are we looking for from prospective volunteers. Because for me in grassroots football, particularly in the foundation phase, I'm not looking for the best coach. I'm looking for someone that's great with kids, confident that they can talk and handle kids, really positive, really enthusiastic, really child-centered. They're the skills we're after.
Absolutely, I totally agree. But it's a totally different mindset, and for the people who've been around a couple of long time, where the natural tendency is, oh, we already know which dad's taking that under-8s team next season. This is a different way of thinking. But we are actively encourage our under-15s and under-16s to do Playmaker as almost a matter of course, and come along to Wildcats and help at Wildcats, because that's a slightly easier place to go than saying, oh, that's your team next season.
No, that is really, really good, and that's a great example of knowing your club, creating a culture, because like you say, now you're making that coaching route almost become natural and something that all players do. That's really, really good. A great piece of detail on that. Thank you for that. I'm just going to jump on to, I know he will be leaving in a minute. I'm going to try and whiz through some of the stuff that he sent across. A little bit more detail in this one. This one was more from Barnsley Women Football Club. Oh, get to the right page. More focused on all volunteers. So previously there we're talking about recruiting coaches and ex-players or current players. This one's more holistic, more volunteers, committee, coaches, players all around. But what Stephen, if he has got a minute, he might jump in and do this bit for me if he wants to. But what we've got here at Barnsley is they've really embedded a culture of having female stakeholders within clubs. I see he's come on camera, so I might just pass on to Stephen. He's got himself 3 minutes, I reckon, to really just cover what he's been doing at his club.
Yeah, I don't intend to read what you've got on, Tom, because people can read that themselves. But basically, I'm on a kind of mission to make sure that I'm probably the only male involved, to create a real legacy around female empowerment. Because although we've got to be careful, you can't eradicate males, because there's a heck of a lot of great experience and knowledge and skills with your current workforce and fathers and dads and relatives. However, if I'm brutally honest, right from the onset, we do want our women and girls and our club members to actually be in charge of everything around the club. And it's not just the playing. We want it to be more than that. We want it to be a focus for evolving into anything you want to do through the club. So whether it be football, whether it be playing, whether it be socialising, whether it be putting on courses for mothers around whatever they want to do, even qualifications, first aid ourselves. And if we can then, as we're on course to actually build our own women and girls only stadium, then we've got the perfect venue to do so. So it's a kind of really exciting phase at the moment. So really, in essence, that's it. That's the holistic view.
Thank you, Stephen. That's really good. So I've whizzed through that. Hopefully you've had a bit of a read of that before we came. But what I really like about what's going on up there is that embedding it as a culture that we want female stakeholders involved in the club. And look, let's be honest, that's not an outlier, but we haven't got many clubs in that situation. Like Stephen just said, he's the only male on that committee. So it's not maybe an atypical example, but it's something that is really, really interesting to follow and track, and seeing the effect that has on the club's members and on the people involved in the club is really, really interesting to follow and see. I want to just note some of the challenges that Stephen mentioned when he sent this over around. There's two key ones for me, and the inflexibility and selfishness of women and girls stakeholders. And that's, for me, when we're embedded in that, we've always done it that way. The dads have always taken teams on. This is how we coach football at this club. This is the type of people that we want involved at the club, because you're automatically shutting off that diverse moment. You're automatically shutting off portions of the community that can't be involved because they don't fit that atypical set. We've always done it like that. So that really, really hit a chord in me. And also the male attitudes. There's some fantastic volunteers in this county, but you may come across people involved in the game that don't see it in the same way that we do, and don't see the subtle differences that there are between the girls and the boys game, the men's and the women's game, that there are subtle differences, and have that attitude that, well, it doesn't matter, there's an entire male committee and that we've got a group of men making decisions on women and girls' behalf. They don't see that, so that can be a challenge too, that we've got to broaden people's horizons. And it goes back to the point we made earlier about it's not always about replacing those people, but how do we diversify the pool, the group of people, to ensure that other things are considered, other thoughts are shared, other ideas are passed through the club. So it was really, if you've got the time, go back and read those slides that we sent out the other day, because I think it's really, really good example of some top work. So I'm going to move along on to, well, I'm just going to fire on this actually. See you, Stephen. Thank you for that. So this is the start section actually of the slides we showed earlier. So we talked about the benefits of diverse committees earlier, and this is kind of the entry point. And I just want you to just cast your eye over this around our process that we're really looking to push, and it's about creating the right environment, recruiting, and then you get the benefits that we discussed earlier. So things to consider around creating the environment: avoiding that boys club vibe that we've maybe touched on a little bit, a positive and friendly environment, simple things such as appropriate meeting venues. And I know we're online most of the time now, but appropriate meeting venues, not going down the pub if that's not appropriate for the group of people you've got involved or the type of people that you want to get involved. Having a real set code of conduct, expected behaviours of your committee, and that needs to include things such as gender neutral language and equal opportunities to contribute. What we can't have is people sitting on a committee who feel that they don't have a voice or don't feel that they can share because they'll be shut down by the larger kind of cohort of people that are all thinking in the same way. Take discrimination reports seriously as clubs, and make your stance really clear. If you're a diverse club, if you're doing some of the stuff we're outlining in this project, shout about it, make your stance clear, publicise your stance, market the club off the back of that. This club does things differently. This club's striving for diversity. it's really, really important if you can create that environment around the club. Hopefully that'll have a positive effect on your recruitment of volunteers. Recruiting a more diverse workforce, so gender-friendly advertising. Again, we've talked about, Rachel was sharing with us there about how sometimes you have those perceptions that you've got to have a football background, or the dads will do it because they know football, that type of attitude. That speak to everyone, include every single member when you're advertising, not just to the dads. We're not just tapping up the dads who you think they might take the team. Are we opening it up to everyone? Are we showcasing previous success stories within your club or outside of the club? Know your members. Make it really, really clear that prior football experience is not a prerequisite to volunteer at this club. We've talked about the type of behaviours that you want from a coach, for example. They've got to be fun, enthusiastic, understand safeguarding, and be good with kids. Well, that describes most parents, dads and mums. The football stuff can be dealt with afterwards, and the football stuff might be shared across a coaching team on an age group of 3 people. So it won't all have to come from that one person. So are you making it really clear that actually these are the characteristics we want? The football stuff comes separately, because hopefully that opens the door, opens the pool that you're looking into. It makes it twice as big. Tap into your members' skill sets. Target people if you know they've got set skills. Make it clear what's required. So again, what do you want as a club? Fun, safe, engaging people. Make it really clear. Not football knowledge, UEFA B, blah, blah, all of that. No, we want the fun, safe and engaging people involved in our club. And just be really clear on what commitments are required, because some people are put off by what they think it might be, but actually you coming in as an assistant coach in a team of 3, this is what it will involve. 1 training session a week, 1 match a week. There won't be loads of admin to do because you're the assistant coach. So make it really clear, because we don't want people put off by stuff that maybe isn't even going to be involved in what they're doing. And try and promote internal progression, and some of the stuff we've covered earlier. Can we convert players into coaches? Can we give them deployment to become referees and they stay part of the club? Can we get players onto the committee so that they can share their experience with the committee to make the club offer even better? Okay. Final case study, and I'll really whiz through this one. I've wrote some notes on this to make sure I don't spend ages on it, but we conducted a coach survey with the listed female coaching workforce we've got within this county. And I just want to shine a light on a few key areas. So on there, you've got the 94% of respondents have a playing background. So my challenge on that would be, are we doing enough as clubs to encourage non-players to get involved? Because in our workforce, of the respondents we've got at the minute, I think we had around 30% of our workforce respond to this. 94% of them had a playing background. So there's a pool of people there, a pool of potential female volunteers with no playing background. That are we excluding them before we even start? So what work, and it might be something that you can look to in your club, can we do, or what can we put in place to get these people involved? Because there is that thought, that thinking process that, well, I didn't play football, so I can't possibly coach, or I can't possibly contribute to this team. What are we going to do to smash through that barrier? So that'd be a challenge that I'd raise from kind of the feedback we had from here. One thing I really like about the feedback we got was all the coaches, every single coach that responded to this, female volunteers, female coaches, made reference to the development or improvement of players as one of the reasons that they're motivated to coach. Now, all of us sitting here as club officials, which I think that they are the people that we want, people that are focused on the development and improvement of players. So again, male, female, experience or not experience, they're the type of people we want. So again, are we doing enough to recruit these people that are like-minded, that think like us, that put the results to one side and focus on the player's journey, their learning, that holistic approach, and not just football for results? So that really interested me on the feedback we got from there. And then finally, just want to make note of some of the more in-depth answers we got. There's some quotes underneath this one, but 45% of the respondents made reference to a perceived lack of knowledge or inferior knowledge of female coaches. And some of the quotes around that were, they automatically think we don't have the same knowledge, we're not as well equipped, we're not good enough, not equal to men, which really, really, it was an eye-opener for me. and it didn't upset me, but it made me really think, actually, what are we doing within our clubs to ensure that that is not happening? And again, I'm not pointing fingers or saying that anyone in this network is in an environment that is like that, but if they're the thoughts of these female volunteers that are in the game, what are we going to do to, again, I'll say it, smash through those barriers and change the mindset, change the thought process around what is volunteering within a football club? Because if it is, well, I'm sorry, I'm a woman and people are going to think I don't know enough about football to be involved. What can we do as clubs to smash that wall and say, no, you are the type of people that we want involved? So they were the 3 key points I took from the feedback, the survey we had there. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that or any ideas, particularly around the first bit around how do we attract these people that don't have a playing background? Is there anything going on at your clubs? Are you doing anything? Have you had any thoughts? Rachel, do you want to unmute yourself again?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we've got any sort of materials that work, but I do wonder whether there's something we could do that we could all use across the board that's got some of those key messages in and sort of remove some of those perceptions about what you need to do to be a coach, because we're probably all struggling with it, and it's just, you know, something that's, you know, short and snappy, got some good sort of images in, etc., that we could all use to get rid of some of those myths. I think that would be helpful, and it's probably better doing it once than us all trying to create our own.
Awesome. So I've just skipped the slides on a little bit to talk a bit more about recruitment. So Sarah, by the way, Sarah's on the meeting. My manager has actually pulled a word out today because she has put this on the website today, which is fantastic. But we do have a volunteer toolkit. Within that, the link's in there, and I'll send it out to you following the meeting. We've got some stuff around recruiting volunteers and tapping into wider talent pools and things like skill matrices. What do you want your volunteers to look like? What skills do they need? Job profiles. And again, it sounds formal, but you're actually hopefully cutting through a lot of the stuff that's not important that we've mentioned around football knowledge and coaching knowledge. And can you make it abundantly clear when you go out to your members, go out to your parents, that these are the 5 key things that we're looking for from a potential coach? If you can't coach football, if you don't know football, that's not an issue. What we're looking for are these type of people to step up, and we will support, we will help you along that journey. So that site, I'm hoping, works. I went on it earlier, so I'm hoping it's shown, although I can see Sarah's typing. So what I will do is I will share that with you all afterwards. I'll send you the raw stuff if it's not on there, but we have got some supporting documents in there around job profiles, around skill matrices. And again, it all sounds quite heavy, but if you can narrow that down to some key areas that you want to recruit in, we want a coach, these are the 3 things we're looking for. Can anyone do that? Or can anyone step up and do that for us? And Sarah's making a really interesting point around there, that we don't have to formalize this. It might be things like activators, leaders, helpers, because I'm going to say it again, we're not saying there must be a female lead coach or manager on these teams. What we're trying to do is increase the number of volunteers associated with the teams, for that diversity of thought, for that diversity of approach. So it might be you've got a manager, assistant manager, and an activator. And actually, it might be that activator that you list as an assistant coach on whole game that fits the bill. And that might be the first stepping stone in. And maybe that the manager leaves the year after, and that coach or that activator feels, actually, I've really, really contributed and enjoyed this, and I'm comfortable, and I'll step up and manage the team. So it's getting bums on seats, which is my favourite saying, I'm sure my colleagues will say, but it's getting those bums on seats and getting them through the door. But we've got to make it attractive, but we've also got to cut through all the jargon, cut through all the football spiel and say, we're not after the next, I'm trying to think of a good example, we're not after the next big top football manager, Emma Hayes, we're after a fun person that's safe and likes to be around children and coach, not necessarily coach children, but be around kids and have a good rapport with children. That's what we're looking for. So hopefully that toolkit's of use to you. I'm more than happy to support and work with you individually if you want to implement stuff like that. But I think it's so important that we, and I think that's a really important point for Rachel, that as a collective, can we really shift how we go about recruiting volunteers and and maybe take a new approach and see where that gets us. Because again, not everything we say or do is going to work. Not everything's going to have the desired effect. We've really got to try and push the boundaries to smash through some of these barriers. So I'll leave that in your own time. Sarah's put the link in for me, which is really useful. I'll leave that in your own time to review and have a look at. But again, more than happy to touch base with you and work through that. We're nearly there, and I've got 3 minutes, but I reckon I can get this done in 5. So the player survey, and this is a part of the criteria that we've requested that you work towards. The reason we want to do it is we want loads and loads of raw feedback from your players that are out there playing within your clubs. And it will really help us drive some of the work that we do across the board as a county. And within the women and girls game, we've got a huge remit to really, really crack on and drive on with this. So we want to use that feedback and data to drive what we do. And again, it'll help support you as clubs to... Oh, I've lost control. What's happened here? It'll really help you as clubs to maybe shift how you approach things. Sorry, I'm just having to reload the presentation back in. So it might give you some work, some scope, some work to do in-house that you think, actually, a lot of our players are saying X, Y, and Z. What can we do to implement those changes? Or actually, we never thought about listening to those young players, and actually it's been really beneficial. How do we incorporate that into our club moving forward? So the surveys is formatted and ready to go, other than we want to hear a little bit from you, just in case we've missed anything glaringly obvious or something you think that must be included, because we want to hear about that. So what we have covered within it is a section on why they play, your club, so they provide feedback on the club in different areas, so around how what they like about the club, what things they'd like the club to do moving forward, the importance of female coaches, a really small section on leagues, but you don't necessarily need to worry about that, competition, and what their footballing future looks like. So my question to you, and you can use the chat, put your hands up and come off, is, have we missed anything? Is there anything as a club you think we'd love to hear about that, particularly from our players, and can you include that? And we can look to do that for you, look to accommodate it, or any other feedback around that. So they're the categories. We've tried to, the why you play section is probably the biggest, and then the club section is the next biggest. So you'll get some really, really in-depth feedback around that. How it'll work practically is I've got the survey formatted. So what I will do when we're good to go is I'll copy and paste the survey umpteen times until I've got one for each club, put your club name in the title, and it will have its own specific link. So we can send you the link. We can also add in anyone you want, so from your committee, to see the results. So you can see all the results coming in live, and you can have that raw data. We can access the raw data too. It hasn't got people's personal details on, so we don't need to worry about any GDPR or that type of stuff. But once you've got the link, you can then circulate that to your players. We're really pushing you to try and go and get at least 25% of your current female players to complete it, because we think that will give us a really good opportunity to get lots of data. So you will get your club's data. We as the county FA will see everybody's data. That's how it'll work moving forward. But if you've got any feedback, or if you've got anything, you want to add or check and challenge. So Chris has put stuff around social, so we can have a look at that. So Rachel, what age is it aimed at? It's aimed at all female players. If I'm being honest, it's more targeted at junior players, but if open age players want to complete it, it is applicable and it is suitable to them. We have made note on it that for younger players doing it, because we don't mind if an under 8, for example, wants to do it. We've put some notes in there for the parents to try and kind of get the children's point of view without writing it in adult talk and getting their opinion put on top of the child's opinion. So we're really keen for that kind of raw, unvetted kids' first thought going, I don't like that, I do like that, I play because I enjoy it, I'd like to see my mates, I don't care if we win or lose. Those type of thought processes that you get from those players. So it is open to all, open age all the way down. So yeah, Rachel, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, only because it's very current for us, because I'm spending a lot of time with the players and asking them those questions, but face to face.
Awesome.
It is very different. asking an under 8 and an under 16. So I think we just have to think about that, because as you say, you might not get that first response. It's really important. And I know this is about, you know, the girls' side, but actually what's very interesting from a club point of view is if you ask the same question of an under 8s girl and under 8s boy, they are very, very different answers. And actually you need to understand both to help, because what you get from the boys sometimes is, well, why do we do this, or why do they do that? So I know it creates more work, but it is really useful insight to get both sides of it.
Very valid point, and that's something what we can look to do. And that is a quick fix when I split the survey off to get it ready for you. If you've got both pathways, and you want me to,
I'd rather do both, because I'd rather see the data from both.
Male or female, and then you can filter the results into both and compare and contrast. So that's a really interesting point, and obviously that's applicable to you. Some of the clubs involved will be female only, but that's a really valid point. It's something I can do. That's not going to be a big chunk of work. That'll take me 1 minute, and then when I duplicate it, it'll be there. So that's really, really interesting, and that's something I hadn't considered. And I think it actually is really, really useful, and it could be one of them eye openers where when we do have committees that are stuck in their ways potentially, or people with, I'll say outdated views that, well, it's just the same. It's just the same as boys football. We'll just replicate that. It isn't. There are differences. There are things that aren't the same, and the players' motivations are different, and the reasons they play are different. So I think that's a really valid point, and actually for us, it probably add a lot of value to that as a total package. So that's a really, really valid point.
The difference was amazing. I mean, I expected a difference, not as stark as I got.
And I think that would be for your committee or as a club to look at and go, we didn't realise that, and actually we might need to shift and address how we deliver the boys' path, the girls' pathway. It could really lead to some positive changes. So thank you for that. That's something that I'll definitely add in and include, because that's really valuable. Is there any other thoughts or feelings or anything that people want involved in that survey? Because once we get to kind of the end of this week, that's when I'll start looking to share them with you. So it's one of them, speak now. So finally, and we touched on this earlier when Jim asked his question and Katie spoke too around what are you actually getting from us? And I do want to reiterate that we want you to be involved in this because you want to make those changes that will benefit your club. And we're not going to hide away from that fact, but there is support from us, and we are more than willing. We've got some great people in this team with some great knowledge, and we'll be more than happy to support you in any which way that we can. So there is that bespoke support. If you need specific club support, come to me and we'll make it happen, whether I'm the best person, Sarah's the best person, someone else in the team, to meet the needs of your clubs. You might be struggling in the coaching point. It might be the constitution stuff. And actually, I need to lean on our admin team to really, really support you. So what you need, we will support on. We will also, on the stuff we mentioned earlier around at the Marcoms, particularly in the build-up and the lead-up to the tournament, we're going to be shouting about you as clubs. We want you to be able to shout about the great work that you're doing to demonstrate that culture change potentially. And I just want to reiterate that as a county FA, the women and girls game is a massive part of what we're doing. And by being the best place to play, by having these things in place, you're putting yourself in a great position to receive funding or to utilise FA initiatives. Now, not all of these are confirmed, and things will pop up and go away as time goes on. So I don't want to sit here and go, you'll be able to access this, that and the other, because not all of it will be applicable to you, but you're putting yourselves in the best positions to receive that support and receive those funding things when they do come up and you do meet the criteria. One of these that I just want to touch on, and this has just come out very recently, so I've got no other information on this, but as examples, Sport England have currently got a legacy grant for female-friendly clubs. They're finalising the details. It will be host city clubs only. So if you're not in the host city, that won't be applicable to you, but I thought it'd be a good example to just talk about. Looking to develop female teams, and you'll be able to apply. It's likely to launch in September. So that's just an example of a pot of money that's popped up that you're putting yourself in the best position to access by doing this stuff. That one is specific to host cities, so not applicable to everyone. Other one that I was in a meeting, not just today, around club consultants, which are highly knowledgeable people in the club landscape. So we've got access to 8 days or 6 days of them. It's not, again, the remit's not been confirmed, but it might be something that you working towards this are putting yourself in a position where we can then link the club consultants into you to support you to go to the next level. Or you might be a fantastic example of a club that's got the pathway and you're trying really hard to develop that culture. And we might be able to go, actually, consultant A, that is their skill set, and we might be able to allocate them to you to push you on to that next level. So by doing this stuff, it's not, we can't go, it's going to earn you this much money, or you're going to get this much in funding, or you're going to attract this many players, because it'll be different for every club, but you're putting yourself in the best position to access this sort of stuff. But I do want to reiterate that we want it to be that intrinsic. We want you to be looking at your club and thinking, how do we make this the best place first and foremost for our players and volunteers? But there'll be other potential funding. I was in a meeting again earlier around coach bursaries, stuff around facilities. If you're delivering outcomes surrounding the women and girls game, you're going to be in a position to attract that funding or maybe link into that funding. So it's really, really important. So what happens next, I've only gone 7 minutes over, is down to kind of you. And you've got this period now between kind of now and Christmas to really crack on and start working towards. Are there any quick wins that you can get in really quickly around your constitution, or other stuff that you need support from us with? Do you need to go away now as a committee and have a chat and start thinking about, do we still want to do this? Can we do it? What are we going to do to work towards? Have you got any final questions? Do you have any challenges that you think, oh, this is going to be tough, we're struggling there? So it's kind of over to you. Fire away if you've got any questions. I'm hoping that we've not covered everything, but I think we've maybe opened the door now and had a little look at what this is all about, and what it might look like for you as a club. And the most pleasing bit, we've had some really great input from a few of you around the stuff that's already happening. So we've talked about making changes or changing the culture, but it's really pleasing that some of you are already doing this stuff. So the challenge, the throwback is, right, how do we cement this? How do we take it to the next level? How do we ensure that we leave that legacy for years to come? And it's not just while you're involved. What about the next people that become involved? How do we ensure this continues in the future? So any questions, please fire away. It can go in the group, into the chat. It can go, you can come off mute. You can email me privately, and I'll be more than willing to come back to you. So I'll leave that open to you. I will send you a link to the recording. I will send you the slide deck, and we will send you the link to the volunteer toolkit again, although Sarah's put it in the chat. So you'll have access to all of this. So I will stay on. If anyone's got anything they want to ask, feel free.
Tom, can I stay on just for a few minutes at the end? There's something very club specific I'd just like to check out. Is that all right?
Absolutely. See Katie's typing. I'll make sure we get that boys bit added in. Now, thank you, Katie. Thanks for joining us tonight. And that's, for me, the most important bit. Lots to think about, lots of things to consider. Hopefully some positive ideas and kind of started that intrigue towards what it might look like for you as a club, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. It might not be all big projects and converting players into coaches. It might just be some subtle changes that you need. So it's absolutely really glad that you've left with things to think about. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for joining us. Pat, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Just wanted to say thank you, Tom. Obviously, a lot of food for thought there. And I think, obviously, I don't think any of us who are sat here are thinking we're going to get lots and pots of money, because that's not what we're doing it for. So, but any help you can give us, I'm sure all of us would agree we'd welcome it with open arms. So just want to say thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat. That's really good. And like I said, we are, as a team, more than happy to support in every single which way we can. And like you said, it won't always be financial and bursaries. It will be more some of those changes that you make at ground level that make a massive difference. So we're more than keen to support you in whichever route you take.
Thank you.
Awesome. Right. Right, what I'll do is I'll stop the recording now so I don't have to do a big edit job.